Tomorrow is New Year's Eve, or December 30th, and I plan to do some baking. But both of the things I want to make tomorrow take some preparation the night before. Here's something new I've never made before. Cranberry walnut bread that takes a sponge, which is sort of like Cheetor's sourdough. So I just mix let's see, half cup of, I'll use bread flour, half cup of white whole wheat flour, only a fourth teaspoon of yeast, and then a third cup of water. Stir that up, put a lid on it, and let it go overnight. The reason for a sponge is to improve the flavor some. I need what did I say, half cup? Yeah, half cup. So I've got a half cup of bread flour, my King Arthur flour, and half cup of the flour that I grind. Where are you? My white wheat flour. I had some red wheat flour out here too. I may put that in. I may put some of the red wheat in the actual cranberry walnut bread. Okay, and then a quarter teaspoon yeast. I keep this in the refrigerator in a glass jar. And what was the last thing? Oh, a third cup of water. Let's stir this up first. Again, because there's yeast in it, you don't want to use hot water. I used room temperature water, more or less. Let's pour that in. See if I can stir this by hand. It said to use a mixer. That seems like a waste of a beating bowl to me. I mean, if I can mix sourdough, but oh, this is different. I've made a different kind of overnight starter that was called poolish. There are different kinds of overnight sponges, I should say, and usually it depends on the amount of water. This is odd. Only a third cup of water to a whole cup of flour. So I'm going to have to mix this in a little bit better. I'm curious what that's going to look like in the morning. This is what it looked like once I got it mixed up good. Actually, I had to use my hands on this. It's a dough. I've never made a starter like this. I looked it up. This is a biga, which is, instead of the poolish, which has more liquid in it, this is what I guess I was supposed to use for my Italian ciabatta, but I think I used a poolish instead. I have my doubts about this. But we'll trust the recipe for now and give it a try. Until tomorrow, good night, little biga. Sleep tight. Good morning. I'm curious about what the biga looks like. You curious too? Let's see. Take the lid off. And, oh, well, hey, that does look like a sponge, doesn't it? Interesting. I thought it was way too, like it had way too much flour in it that it wasn't going to work. It's pretty solid. Okay, what we're supposed to do now, let's just look at the starter while I'm at it. Yeah, that's more what I thought a sponge would look like. The starter is a lot more liquidy. Oh, great, now I got that all over the spoon. These two going to be friends? Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter. Well, let's look over this list of ingredients. Okay, I'm not going to use bought orange juice. I'm going to squeeze a couple tangelos in my juicer. And then it calls for orange oil. I have essential orange oil, but I'm not going to use that. Where does orange oil come from? Yeah, it comes from the peeling. So, navels would work better. I don't have a navel orange. This has a nice bumpy skin. And I have a microplaned thing. Goes without mentioning that you definitely want to wash the fruit first before you peel it. It's still not as good as a navel, but we got some peeling off of these. It smells really good. It smells wonderful. And scrape that off. Yeah, that'll be good. That will do for our orange oil. Now to squeeze the tangelos. I have no idea how much juice these things have. I only need a fourth of a cup. Will one of these be a fourth of a cup? Let's see. This is where you don't want to use navels because navels are not juicy. There are seeds in here. That's not going to matter. We just push this upside down on here and squeeze it. And now we have a little moat of orange pulp. This would not work if you were trying to make enough orange juice, say, to drink for breakfast, but if all I need is a fourth of a cup, let's see. I think we're going to have a fourth of a cup. And true. Whoa, that's perfect. So now you know. One medium-sized tangelo that is very juicy is equivalent to a fourth of a cup of juice. There's a seed in there. We didn't see it, right? No. Didn't see that seed. It was just a little bitty seed. We'll pretend it's a walnut. What's next? Did I put the water in yet? I did not put the water in yet. Looks like egg yolk. What's next? Yeast, flour, salt, oil, honey. Let's put the honey in next. 1/4 of a cup. Shall I measure? Nah, honey doesn't matter. That looks like a 1/4 of a cup. Next up, oil. And like I said, I'm using the sunflower oil that I bought a couple gallons of at Ship Shawana. It was only $10 for a couple of gallons. It takes 3 tablespoons. So, this is not a good idea. Dump it in here. That's 4 tablespoons. So this looks like, yeah, that'll do for 3 tablespoons. I'm happy with that. You're going to think this is silly, but one of the reasons I like using Himalayan pink salt, no kidding, is because it's pink and it shows up and I can tell if I've added it to my flour already. Sometimes I'm like, did I add that yet? But with pink salt, yes, I can tell that I added it. I'm safe that way. I don't have bread with either double salt or no salt at all. And I just noticed that this, except for the 1/2 cup of flour that was in the biga, in the sponge, this is 100% whole wheat bread. It calls for 2.5 cups of whole wheat flour. I don't think there's any way it's going to end up taking that much. So I'm going to put in, let's see how much to start with, maybe just 1.5 cups. And then we'll put the yeast on top. We'll throw everything into the bread machine. And here's my white wheat flour that I ground last week. And that's 1/2 cup. That's 1.5 cups. All right. Oh, I need to put the lid back on the oil. I already made enough of a mess with the honey. I don't want to make a mess with the oil. Oh, what did I forget? I forgot the yeast. Let's put the yeast on top of the flour. What did it call for? 2.5 teaspoons. I always use instant yeast. If you don't use instant yeast, then you would have to proof it first with a little bit of lukewarm water. But instant yeast doesn't need to do that. There's 1 teaspoon. And there is 2 teaspoons. And dough conditioner takes usually about a tablespoon to 3 cups of flour. A tablespoon is generally what I use. I'm not gonna lie, this is funny looking dough, really stiff, and I only have 1.5 cups of flour in it. Well, maybe the bread machine will do a better job at mixing that really. Well, let's hope the bread machine works its magic on this. Boy, I think next time I need a little bit more liquid in the Viga. Mix it up. It's probably going to need a little bit more flour. Let's mix it first. And, yeah, it's mixing it. And I will add a bit more flour now. Okay, close the lid again. I'm an impatient person by nature, but you can't be like that with yeast bread. You can't just dump in all the flour at once. You have to do it a little bit at a time. You know what? This is not terribly sticky. I think we can transfer this to the bowl. Put a little bit of flour in it. I'm going to try this. It's probably a really bad idea because I think it's going to raise more than what this bowl can handle. We'll see. We'll see. If so, I'll transfer it to something bigger. But the bowl's already dirty, right? Okay, let's dump this in. So maybe it's a little bit stickier than I thought. I have some flour in the bottom. Poke it down. Fold it once, twice. Fold it over. Set the timer for 10 minutes. Do this again a couple of times. We've been gone for 3 hours. Let's see if this raised enough. Oh, that's perfect. That's really nice. Okay, so I'll dump that out on my silpat. And then I just noticed the recipe said, here I've chopped up my walnuts, but it calls for toasted. It would have been better if I had toasted them before I chopped them. But better late than never. Let's transfer these over to the stove. I'll use a heavy pan here. I suppose you could do this in the oven also, but this will be faster. Let's crank it up to medium heat. This should only take, once it's hot, we want them to start, we don't want them to burn. want them to start getting just a little bit toasty. The reason why you toast them, you don't have to toast them. In fact, I don't think I've ever toasted them before for yeast bread. It will, again, give it just a little bit more depth of flavor. Back over to my dough. It says in the recipe, there is a lot of stuff to work in here. Like, don't be discouraged, it's going to take a while. Yeah, okay, there's the... It's going to take a while to knead those in. Have to keep folding it over and kneading them in. Normally, I would mix that before it got to this stage, but we'll follow the recipe. Let's dump those walnuts on top. This is what it looks like before I start folding and folding and folding and mixing in. The cranberries keep poking out. The dough's nice and springy. I'm happy with that. Well, let's transfer it over here. Okay, that's more than 6 inches. That's okay. Nice flattened circle. When it raises enough, we will cut some slits in it. We're going to take these off the top. They just didn't fit. Okay, because this is 100% whole wheat, pretty much, it's going to take longer to raise. Plus, my kitchen is not that warm on this cold day. So we'll just forget about this for a while. And in the meantime, I will start my other recipe, which was the sourdough burger buns. So say goodbye to this guy for now. Till later. The whole wheat cranberry orange walnut bread has been raising for over an hour and 15. It says it won't double in size because of all the wheat flour. I think it's time to turn the oven on because this is going to be ready. Okay, regular temperature, 350, middle rack, 45 to 50 minutes. Tent it with aluminum foil halfway through if it's browning too fast. The oven is up to temperature. It's time to put the cranberry walnut bread in the middle of the oven. And we'll check on it halfway through and see if I have to tent it with foil. And it's time to tent. So it doesn't get too brown. There's about 15 minutes to go yet. And I think it ended up taking about, 40 minutes. Maybe a little more than 40 minutes. Let that cool off. We won't cut it until it is completely cooled, and that is a cranberry walnut orange bread. I shouldn't have sliced the bread until it's completely cooled off, but I wanted you to see what it looked like, so I cut just the corner off there. And you can see the walnuts, you can see some of the cranberries. Well, I might as well taste it. Might not even need butter. It would be really good with some cream cheese on it. We'll see what it tastes like just plain. And that's really, really good. This would also make really nice toast. So, that's it for today. Until tomorrow when I make my sourdough burger buns. Happy New Year's.